Hi, I'm Harry, and today we're looking at Real Estate Reforms 2020. One of the big reforms which is coming out is a change to the CPD regime, and then another reform which is coming out is a new licensing system. There are some functional changes and they dovetail with the CPD. So first of all, I thought we'd look at CPD requirements across various jurisdictions. This video is really just about New South Wales, but it gives you some context about what's happening in New South Wales. So if you look here at the table, the ACT, New South Wales, New Zealand, Tasmania and Western Australia all have CPD being required by law. I should just explain the acronym Continuing Professional Development. So what this is a scheme designed to keep practitioners of some kind of profession up to date with changes to the laws regulating their profession and the innovations which might occur within the profession, new technologies, new ways of thinking about ethical concerns, new business practices, all those sorts of things. So if you have a look at the jurisdictions there again and whether continuing professional development is required by law or not, you can see that Queensland, South Australia, the United Kingdom and Victoria don't require it. It's optional. So what that means is that a legislature, the body which makes the laws, so the government, hasn't imposed a requirement that real estate agents complete continuing professional development. In fact, in the United Kingdom, there isn't really a positive licensing regime. What exists there is what's called a negative licensing regime. So what happens is that anyone can practice as a real estate agent without any qualifications or anything, and then if you break the rules, then you get banned forever. So I'll let you think about that, those agents in New South Wales and New Zealand and across the rest of Australia. If you're watching this, let you think about that as an alternative way of being regulated and whether you might prefer it or not. Let's have a look. So what's happening in so this video is about New South Wales. So what's happening in New South Wales? Well, we can have a look at this screenshot which I've taken from the Fair Trading website. So as I mentioned before, there's a change to the names of the classes of license. There's also a little update to the things which an agent must disclose to a potential buyer. We're not really looking at that today. Further rules of conduct required in relation to fee disclosure. We're not going to look at that today either, but we will in a subsequent video. And there's also coming up a new requirement for real estate stock and station agents to obtain a minimum of 3 quotes for maintenance and repair work. Again, we're not going to look at that. We'll look at that in another video. What we're looking at today is changes to CPD and the changes to the licensing system itself. So, how does all of that work? How are you told what CPD you have to do and what qualifications you have to obtain in order to become an agent or progress in your real estate agency career? Well, it all comes from the legislation. Where does the power come from with fair trading or the minister to say what you have to do? Well, it's here, section 15. So the government has passed this legislation and it says that in order for you to get a license, this is on your first application, you have to have such qualifications as the Minister may approve from time to time by an order published on the New South Wales legislation website. So this order is a particular document, and it says what you need to have by way of education or other qualifications in order to get a real estate license. Now the other subsection here of section 15 which is relevant is number 4. A person does not have the qualifications required for the reissue or restoration of a license or certificate of registration if the person failed to comply with any condition of the license or certificate of registration that required the holder to undertake professional development, continuing education, or a course of study, unless the Secretary otherwise determines in a particular case. So, this gives power to the Minister to say you've got to do CPD if you want your license to be reissued for subsequent term or subsequent year. So that's where it all comes from. So it's just a little bit of this little bit of legislation here, then goes on to the Minister's office or fair trading, and they develop the policy and then a whole raft of other documents which then you've got to be across and use to keep up with your professional development. So you can go to if you're interested in all of this reform and you don't want to just take my word for it, you can go to this website here. This is the website at the Fair Trading, which talks about all of the upcoming industry reforms to the real estate agents. So, first we're going to look at CPD, seeing as this is a CPD video, and then we'll look at the new licensing system. So what's come out of the Minister's Office and Fair Trading is this continuing professional development consultation draft, and it seems as if nothing as of, well, it's New Year's Eve today when I'm making this video, but as of today, looks as if this will be the document which will be used. And so if you're a class 1, and that's a licensee in charge, so I'll segue just a little bit here just so you've got the context. There'll be 3 different licenses, and it's kind of similar to how it already is, but there's a licensee in charge, a licensed agent, and an assistant agent, and so that corresponds to a licensee who's nominated under the old system, a licensee who's nominated as the licensee in charge, just a licensed agent, and then a registered salesperson. So if you're in class 1, so that is licensee in charge, or class 2, that is registered, that is just licensed agent, or you've got a certificate of registration, you've got to complete the CPD specified in the license. So if we go back to the legislation here, it's the condition in the license which says you've got to do professional development each year. So the CPD year is going to be running from March till March. So here they're saying that the new one is going to commence in March 2020, so that's in 3 months. And there's a sort of, as licenses get renewed throughout that period, there'll be some provisions to ensure that you're not in breach of the legislation. So as for business skills topics, we'll get to that. Class 1, so that's if you're the licensee in charge, you've got to do extra CPD in business skills. You only have to start doing them from March 2021 onwards. So, how much CPD are you going to have to do? Well, according to this draft, now remember it is a draft, so it could change. Class 1 real estate agents and strata managing agents are going to have to do 9 hours of the CPD activity. There are going to be compulsory CPD topics, and I think that these will be issued from fair trading. So this is a bit like the Western Australian situation where their agent regulation body mandates various topics in a year. And then you've got 6 hours of elective topics. And for those elective topics, Class 1 license holders have to do 3 hours in business skills. So it's elective but not elective for Class 1, if that makes sense, for at least 3 of them. Stock and station agents, slightly different, less burdensome. You've only got to do 3 hours of business skills topics. So Class 2, so this is if you're not a licensee in charge, but you are a licensed agent. You don't have to do the business skills topics, but you've still got to do the compulsory topics, and you've got to do 3 hours of elective. Class 2 license holders, stock and station agents, they've just got to do the compulsory CPD each year, 3 hours. So, under the new regime, they want to create a sort of pathway for newly entered or training real estate agents, I suppose is what you would call it. They're called assistant real estate agents. And so each year, what they envisage is that they hold their certificate for 4 years, and each year they've got to complete part of their certificate 4 in real estate practice. So this comes under the code CPP 41419, and so CPD for assistant real estate agents is sort of pretty easy. You're just completing your certificate 4, and then once you've got your certificate 4 and work experience, you're able to apply to be a licensed agent. So if you're planning on only being a strata managing agent, you've got to be doing it from the strata community management certificate, not the real estate practice certificate. Assistant agents, as we mentioned before, this is the people holding a certificate only. They just keep doing the coursework from their Cert 4. And Class 1 and 2 license holders have a different situation. As we mentioned before, there's the compulsory stuff and there's the elective stuff. So they're already saying what the compulsory things might be for Class 1 and 2, which is real estate reforms. So lucky you if you're a Class 1 or Class 2 license holder. What we're talking about in this video is real estate reforms. They're also talking about So if you're watching this video, you're satisfying to some way part of your first hour there in real estate reforms. Then there's the second topic is rules of conduct. So that's how you're meant to conduct yourself as a real estate agent, as a professional. And then there's risk management. And the rules of conduct are all written down in the legislation and the regulation. So in the Act and the regulation. And as are a lot of the risk management requirements are in there as well. But there's other things to consider in risk management. As for elective topics, in Class 1, so that's if you're a licensee in charge, they're saying you can look at trust accounting, business risk, business practices, marketing and quality control, trust accounting, industrial relations, so that's how you deal with your employees, and how you're meant to supervise your employees as well. Also looking at fraud prevention, that's a big one. You don't want to end up like one of those agents who is tricked into selling a house which the purported owner doesn't actually own. And there's workplace health and safety. That's a big one for real estate agents who are always going out onto other people's property, and you've got to stay safe. Over in general topics, it reads fairly similarly. Workplace health and safety comes up again. Fraud prevention, ethics, property transaction legal requirements, and communication skills. And for Class 2 license holders, it's more of the same for the elective topics. Now, we've looked at the mandatory topics before, just to remind you. Real estate reforms, rule of conduct and risk management. So you're going to have to do those. You're going to have to do 3 hours, 1 hour in each of those topics. And then for Class 2 license holders, so if you're just a licensed agent, you are doing three extra elective CPD topics. And they can be on anything here. So, can you carry over CPD points? So if you're watching this in January, the CPD year starts in March. So, can you carry over watching this video into CPD? Well, the answer is you can. License holders can bring forward any CPD undertaken before the commencement of the reforms if the CPD was completed within the license year immediately preceding the first renewal under the new system. So there's a few conditions in there which you might have to consider. And what it's saying there is if you've done CPD under the old CPD regime, you can count 3 points. Yeah, you can count 3 CPD points as 1 hour. So this is only available during the first year, so only available for the March 2020 to March 2021. So that's the new CPD system, which is coming into operation in March 2020. If you've had to do CPD already, it's the introduction of the mandatory courses and changing it to an hour-based system as opposed to points. So that makes it a bit simpler. You've just got to do 9 hours if you're a licensee in charge, class 1, 6 hours if you're a class 2 real estate agent, which is just a licensee. Class 1 and Class 2 have to do compulsory CPD. Class 1 has to do the compulsory business skills, which is the additional 3 hours. And if you are an assistant agent, which is somebody holding a certificate, you're just doing your certificate course to get your CPD. So, what about the new system? Well, here it is. So this came out in September 2019, so it's fairly recent. And so as I mentioned before, what they're really trying to achieve here is a pathway to becoming a fully fledged real estate agent through regulation, and they're doing that through the change to the licensing system and then the education requirements that go along with that. So remember, before we looked at section 15 of the Act, and subsection 1 talks about the qualifications that you need in order to become a real estate agent, and the last subsection looked at the ongoing qualifications you might need. So that's the continuing professional development. So we've got to separate out the qualifications in order to become an agent and the continuing professional development. So that's like getting your diploma and doing CPD courses for the rest of your career as a real estate agent. So this is similarly the new Qualifications Order, which we mentioned before, is also going to commence in March 2020. And that ties in with the new labelling for the licensing system, which does have that extra functional effect of saying that if you're a licensee in charge, you've got to do those additional 3 CPD. So it says here, currently the Act requires people acting as an agent in the real estate and property services industry to hold a certificate of registration or licence. A licence can be held by an individual or corporation, while certificates of registration can only be held by individuals. Under Section 8, Subsection 1 of the amended Act, the licensing framework has been simplified so that the functions of a buyer's agent, on-site residential property manager and business agent are all covered under the real estate agent licence. As a result, the licensing system will offer licences and certificates of registration in 4 categories: real estate agent, stock and station agent, dual real estate and stock and station agent, strata managing agent. The new licensing system will also have 3 levels of licences, what we've been talking about, reflecting different levels of qualifications and experience. Certificate, so this is if you're a newbie to the real estate industry, so that's called an assistant agent. Now, Class 2, a licensed agent, and Class 1, a licensee in charge. So we've got the comparison table here, and we've already discussed this, but here it is for you to have a look at. Hopefully that makes sense. So at the moment, if you are a licensee in charge, this is just a nomination. But what's going to happen from March 2020, when you've got to go and renew your certificate, is you're going to have to get a different type of license. You have to get a Class 1 license. So we've looked at section 15, subsection 1 before. And what this is about how you get the next license. So if you don't have anything, you're going to have to get the certificate. Once you're in the certificate, how do you get your Class 2? And then how do you get your Class 1, having been a Class 2 license holder? So what they're saying here is that the Qualifications Order, which is a document which you can go and look up on the Fair Trading website, distills this diagram into words, or rather the diagram distills the words in the order into the words in the order are distilled into this diagram here. That's all still quite wordy, isn't it? So new entrants. So to become an assistant agent, so this is a certificate holder, you've got to have done at least 5 core units of your Cert 4, and if you're becoming a strata management person, you've got to do 7 prescribed units of the Strata Community Management Cert 4. And then the certificate is valid for a total maximum period of 4 years. Existing agents, so if you are already a certificate holder, you've got to renew it as an assistant agent, which is the new label. And it's valid for a period of 4 years. So you've got until the 23rd of March 2021 to, if you're a certificate holder, to become an assistant agent. Otherwise, I'm assuming you're going to have to become a new entrant if you fail to renew. So, in order to enter the real estate industry, real estate services industry as a real estate agent, you're now going to have to become a certificate holder first. You can't directly apply for a Class 1 or a Class 2 license. So the Qualifications Order is going to say that you've got to have completed 5 core units of your Cert 4 in real estate practice, or 7 prescribed units if it's the strata management. If you're currently registered, you've got to renew your certificate as an assistant agent. And then you've got 4 years. So what it's saying is that you've got 4 years to complete your Cert 4 and apply for a Class 2 license. And after that time, the certificate expires. So really what they're saying here and what's happening here is that you've got to decide that you're going to become a real estate agent and be bound by the higher standard of care and duties under the Class 2 license as opposed to the certificate within 4 years. Otherwise, you're not practicing as a real estate salesperson or assistant agent. You're not practicing as an agent. So what they want to do is they want to bind people to a higher standard and provide a pathway to get there. The exception there is assistant stock and station agents whose certificate is subject to a condition restricting them to livestock only activities. So they want you, what they're saying here is they want you to progressively upskill if you're a certificate holder. So here we've got the diagram. An assistant agent will complete their Cert 4. They will have held a certificate of registration for at least 12 months and have demonstrated specific work experience in order to be eligible to apply for a Class 2 license. The agents who already hold, who are already licensees, only need to have held it in the last 12 months, and then you apply to become a licensed agent, and then you're on the new scheme. So, under the industry experience, the relevant industry experience, licensees in charge who will be responsible for supervising the assistant agent are going to be asked to verify that they have completed specific work experience tasks as set out in the Qualifications Order. And they've also got to specify the time period during which the applicant was supervised. So it's going to become quite important for licensees in charge to make sure that they are keeping proper records of the assistant agents who they are supervising. Otherwise, the assistant agents aren't going to be able to necessarily graduate into a Class 2 licensed agent license. So, as I mentioned before, it's not as if you've got to worry about all of a sudden changing your license come March 2020 if you're under the old licensing system. They're talking about a grandfathering arrangement applying. and that'll transition you from the old system to the new system. So one example they give is that an agent currently licensed to carry out buyer's agent function will receive a real estate class 2 license conditioned to business broking. And then you can continue to offer services in that area of the marketplace. What they've found is that industry participants see these conditions as important to prevent inexperienced existing agents from starting to perform new functions. So this is the whole part of the new qualifications and the new work experience requirements. One thing that they note here is that you can get a dual license as a real estate agent and stock and station agent, which means you don't have to apply for 2 licenses. And they're claiming this as a red tape reduction victory. So, Class 1 agents. So this is if you're going to be a licensee in charge. You've got to have a diploma of property or a diploma of property services. And you need to have held your Class 2 license, so that's being a licensee, a licensed agent, for at least 2 years. So you've got to wait 2 years before you can become the licensee in charge of an office. And you've got to, again, have that demonstrated work experience, which comes from the other, the licensee in charge who you're working under. And then you can go and apply for a Class 1 license. So, if you're an existing nominated licensee in charge, you can renew to convert into the Class 1 license. So what they're saying here, and this is the policy, is that because licensees in charge are performing significant oversight and management of the business, including authorising responsibility for all withdrawals from trust accounts and the proper supervision of agents and assistant agents, and ensuring compliance with all other regulatory requirements, Class 1 licenses will be held to a higher standard of education than Class 2. And they're therefore also required to have a higher qualification, so in business management. So that's the diploma. So that's separate from the CPD. So the Qualifications Order is still draft, and Fair Trading has said that they're happy to receive additional qualification requirements in the consultation period, which is now over, but it doesn't look like they have. And there's going to similarly be another grandfathering arrangement for the current nominated licensee in charge, who has until 23rd of March 2021 to become the Class 1 licensee. So, how's all of this actually coming into effect? Well, they're changing the regulation. So the first thing, which I've mentioned before, is that they're changing the name of the Act. That's being changed to the Property and Stock Agents Regulation 2019. Well, they're changing the name of the Act and the regulation. They're going to have new clauses describing the different roles and responsibilities. Assistant agents will not be permitted to enter into a contract or transaction on behalf of any party, except for a residential tenancy agreement or livestock transactions. So they're changing some of the functional parts to go along with the label. They are changing some of the functional parts. It's not just CPD, but it's, as far as I can tell, it's going to be still mostly similar. One important change is that assistant agents are going to have to be supervised by the Class 1 licence. This is the licensee in charge. And only Class 1 licence holders are going to be able to authorise withdrawal of money from a trust account. There will be some exemptions for these kinds of agents. We'll look at these disclosures in another video. And the new rules of conduct too. There's just a few changes there. So that's it. That's what's happening in 2020 as far as the new licensing system and the new CPD regime. We will look at the changes to the regulation with respect to these things here, like obtaining quotes for maintenance and repairs, and also what some of the new functions of the different license types are in another video. But for now, that's it. So just to recap, if you're a licensee in charge, you're going to have to apply for a Class 1 license, or maybe businesses will decide that somebody else is going to get the Class 1 license instead of the person who's currently nominated. If you're a registered agent who's not running the office, you're just going to get a Class 2 license. And if you're a certificate holder, well, you're going to have to get onto this new track, which is this 4-year track where you complete your Cert 4, and if you haven't done it, then you're not practicing as a real estate agent anymore, or an assistant agent anymore. So in and amongst all of those licensing changes, you're going to have to be doing 9 hours of CPD if you're a Class 1 certificate holder, and you're going to have to be doing 6 hours if you're a Class 2, which is just a licensed agent. 3 of those are elective, and if you're Class 1, 3 out of the 6 elective have to be on business skills. You can choose what you do, and then the other 3 are mandatory. And if you're a assistant agent, you're just doing your Certificate 4. Anyway, that's it for now. See you in another video about those other things with respect to the functions of the new changes of the functions and roles and the conduct, and talk to you again soon.